So you recognize the place? Back in Magdala. I hope you're still enjoying Christmas. We're still celebrating Christmas. The Nativity. There's wonderful words, what we have seen and heard, what our hands have touched. This is very powerful language. And what our hands have touched is God love. God love. God who is love. And the one who coined that expression, God is love, who captured that essence, is in our you have a rear view mirror. How do you have a front view mirror? We don't need a front view mirror, do we? But we're focusing today, and the readings do that for us, on a guy who had an extraordinary heart, whose heart was filled with perceptive. You know, they say that the heart can see better, especially when people are upset by anger and other things. The heart can see better. The heart can see. That's interesting. The heart can see, because love sees more. And this disciple was very deeply blessed by the gift of love. And we can pray for the gift of love, the gift of pure love. And actually those words go together, because up here at the Mount of Beatitudes, we have that famous expression, blessed are the pure of heart, that they will see God. And this disciple was also incredibly pure of heart. But that was a long walk for him as well, because he had been very ambitious. He wanted first place for himself and his brother, and got Mama involved to get it. But he had a very deep connection with Jesus. His name is John. That was said of another John, John the Baptist. His name is John, but this guy's name is also John. And he was a fisherman from across the sea here in Bethsaida, more or less there in the middle of the left piece that's open, where that lone reed is hanging out there. Right behind that reed is Bethsaida, according to the latest biblical conclusions, you know. John, well, it's not as clear that he is from Bethsaida as it is that Peter and Andrew are, but sometimes John and James are also understood to be from Bethsaida. So John is also understood to be the youngest of the disciples. And there is an innocence about youth, if it's protected, if it's kept, if the innocence is kept, if it's developed. Innocence is an amazing gift. The innocence of a child. And to keep that innocence, it was said of Pope Benedict, when he was elected actually, a comment made by a very close friend of his. He said he has the intelligence, the brilliance of 12 theologians and the innocence of a First Communion child. Imagine to be recognized in your late 70s by, you know, a critical eye, a capable eye, that a person in their 70s still has that innocence, that truth, that... And I just like to say a word about that. During the spiritual exercises, the reading we had during mealtime, because that's what you do, monastic style life, with readings of spirituality. And this reading was peculiar. It was a tape recording of a book by Peter Seiwald from Germany, and the last interview he had with Pope Benedict as a retired pope, as emeritus, as former pope. And the book was amazing. It was also done in a dialogue form, so the conversation had two voices. It was a Spanish translation, and the consistency of the clarity of spirit, clarity not just in the brilliance of mind, but in the embracing of truth, and a humility, a capacity to take the consequences for standing by truth. And this was an extraordinary quality that came through in the interview, describing various moments of his life, and this was in a very consistent and solid way. Amazing, actually. Just deeply impressed by this personality, and surely that innocence also has a lot to do with it. Sometimes people think that people who are washed by all kinds of experiences in life have an advantage, and sure, God can bless everybody in whatever situation they're in, but there's no doubt about it that the maintaining of innocence, of purity of heart and purity of mind is an incredible grace. And then we do know that John and James were ambitious. They looked for first places, and that roiled the other apostles. So in that sense, there was also a growth in purity, the grace of purity. And hanging out with Jesus is a great way to grow in purity, because we know Jesus didn't have any selfish ambitions. And when you hang out with somebody who's totally generous, then that's a great advantage for becoming purer, becoming a person who wants to serve the good, to serve the others, to glorify God, to live selflessly, to live generously. And that type of life captures generosity better, notices the generosity of others better. The person who's very selfish will always be skeptical of the generosity of others. They'll think they're second intentions, because that's the way they operate themselves. And when they're faced with real generosity, they might say, well, they're trying to get something out of it, you know? And there's huge blessing in generosity, because it gives us a wonderful richness of experience of God. It's participating in His nature, because we're made in His image and likeness. And if we're generous and pure and kind and ready to serve, and not to look for attention and not to be complaining, we become more and more like God. We develop that image of God in a powerful way. And then we become more sensitive to God. We recognize Him better everywhere, because we hang out more with Him. And he hung out with Him what our hands touched. A good handshake, a good hug for Jesus. What our eyes saw. And there's a very special moment of that where this comes true even further, to another level. And that is actually, it's interesting that we have both the theology of the incarnation in that first reading of John, what our hands touched, what our eyes saw, what our ears heard. You know, the God came that close. God became tangible in the incarnation, in his birth, in his nativity. And so at the end of his life in the gospel reading, Jesus already has been buried, and John is there at the tomb with Peter. And he goes in to the tomb and he sees and he believes. Where's my son gone? He goes into the tomb and he sees and he believes. And that's an incredibly telling line. And one of the first movements of his heart at the tomb is humility, because he leaves the first glimpse to Peter. Even though he himself got there first, he doesn't go in. He lets Peter have the advantage of being the first witness. Why? Because he is docile to Jesus' will that Peter was given the primacy. On this rock, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. And John respects that will of Jesus. And so his spirit is also checked in his ambition there. We see that his ambition is molded and modified by obedience to Christ. This is amazing. Here we see an extraordinary soul, one who wants to see God. Because if we want to see God, we will also become pure. Is that a big fish? No, it's just a big log. It's part of a branch of a tree. Or maybe a whole tree that's moved here in the storm. So there's a great call for us today to want to be pure of heart, to want to see God. To want to put the worldly part of us in check so that the divine part can become visible. Visible to our eyes, audible to our ears, tangible to our hands. We get it. We get God. That He is love. That my life is not wasted. That no matter what my history was, God is love. And God is for me. And God's on my side. He is Emmanuel. He is with us. He wants my very best. He wants my total salvation. My complete good. What an amazing God we have. How we are blessed to be in His company. And there we have the Psalm. Psalm 97. Rejoice in the Lord, you just. Rejoice in the Lord, you just. What a great joy it is to rejoice in the Lord. I want to say a big thank you to all of you who shared the videos. Finally, all the Christmas videos got up. The Bethlehem videos are up. They were up yesterday as I was doing the live stream, complaining about how it was difficult, or commenting how it was difficult rather than complaining. And finally, they're all up. As soon as I finished the Facebook yesterday with all my commentaries about how difficult it was to upload the day before in Bethlehem, then as soon as I turned on the Instagram, I saw that it was posted, and then afterwards I checked, and even the Facebook one, which was longer, also got posted. And finally we were even able to get a portion of the Christmas Day Mass, which never live streamed and was very difficult to process technically, and we got it up yesterday on Facebook yesterday evening, and on YouTube, especially the YouTube version is more easily accessible. People, thank you very much. God bless you. See you later, alligator.